Brimstone, one of the staple Valorant characters since release. He's a controller with a fairly standard set of utility, but that doesn't mean a Brimstone player can't outshine the other controllers when used in the right hands. And that, my friend, is why we do what we do. We're here today to give off some amazing examples of what this cheeked up controller is truly capable of. And believe me, it's a lot. Extremely versatile? Yeah. Incredible post plants? Of course. Stupid fun? Always. Today we're going to be teaching you everything you need to know about Brimmy and more. By the end of this video, you're going to have learned just how crazy strong this controller can be, and who knows, maybe you'll just pick him up as your next main. Starting off our guide, we have the star of the show today, Molly. What makes it the star though? Let me explain. Brimstone's Molly can be used pretty much anywhere as a piece of stalling utility. Stalling utility is insanely powerful in Valorant due to the nature of the game. And since Valorant is played with a time limit, essentially, Brimstone Molly steals 8 whole seconds from the opposing team when it's used correctly. Now, not only does it steal 8 seconds, it ticks 62 damage per second, so anyone caught in it is gonna meet a quick demise. Now, this ends up totaling to a whopping 465 damage, and that is a lot of damage for one ability. This means that it's literally impossible to get the spike to half while defusing in a Brimstone Molly because it would take you 3.5 seconds and the Molly would deal 217 damage during that time. The Molly is also amazing at shutting down a push. If you just throw your smoke down but still have a creeping feeling the attackers are going to hit sights still, a well-placed Molly can shut it down fast. This also means the Molly, as everyone already knows, is great for setting up lineup plays. Just look at this insane Molly play from Parry2in, one of the first ever Radiant Brimstone mains. Notice how he got the kill on Killjoy and was shot at from behind by the Omen and C-Link. And now at this point, he knew he had enough time to go set up his play. And this right here is pretty crucial. Understand how much time you have. There are good and bad times to go for a Molly plus ult play, and that being said, he knew he had enough time to use this lineup. He then used his Orbital Strike to delay in order to give enough time for his Molly to land. The Omen ended up getting the spike to half because he started the defuse before the Molly landed, but as we mentioned, once the Molly's down, there's nothing they can do. The round is won. We actually reached out to Perry for some tidbits of advice when playing Brimstone, and here's what he had to say. Quote, look to diversify your positioning so you aren't dependent on one single spot to do a lineup. Plus, it keeps your location unpredictable, end quote. Another cool way to use his Molly is in coordination with a Viper Orb. Combining your Brimstone Molly with the decay effect results in some pretty fast kills. I briefly touched on this, but as I was saying earlier, there are right and wrong times to use a Molly lineup. Let's go over the wrong times to use a lineup. Now keep in mind, it mainly comes down to timing and what the enemy is doing. If the enemy is double flanking, it's going to be unwise to leave your team to set up for a lineup play. You don't want to take a 2v1 in order to set up your play. Now in the most realistic scenarios, it'd be smarter to play with your team here. You also don't want to do it if your team is getting easily overwhelmed on site. You should stay and use your Molly to delay the enemy team's retake if you aren't confident in your team's ability to hold site. This will be game specific or even round specific. The same thing applies for if you know the enemy is flooding sites. If the enemy team is performing a fast retake, the round's going to likely be decided right there. Basically, either the defenders succeed in retaking site and have plenty of time to defuse, or their retake gets shut down and they lose too many players while running out the choke point. In this case, you want to use your Molly to stuff their push and disrupt their retake attempt. One more tip we can give you is if you don't have any lineups or are stuck on site and time's low, shoot your Molly straight up. As you can see in this clip, Perry had no other use for his Molly, so he made the snap decision to shoot it straight up in hopes he could stall enough for it to land. And thankfully, he successfully stalled just long enough for the Molly to land after he died, winning him and his team the round. Definitely one of these sleeper overpowered picks. As you can see, Brimstone can be insanely powerful with his post plants. All you have to do is learn the dozens of lineups on each map. Yay! And we know nobody has time for that kind of stuff. Which is exactly why we did the work of studying the best Brimstone players and compiling their lineups into an insane 100 lineup playbook over on the SkillCapped website. Finding lineups is one of the most tedious things to do in this game. So if you want to start winning free matches, do yourself a favor and check out the course today. And on top of this, we have another Brimstone course that'll go over exactly where to smoke on every single map, so that you basically just have the full Brimstone playbook all in one spot. With these tactics, you're gonna skyrocket in rank for sure, but don't just take our word for it. We offer that rank improvement guarantee that no other site does, so if you don't climb, you don't pay. More on that at the end of the video. Ah yes, Brimstone's Sky Smokes. His smokes last the longest in the entire game, at a total of 19.25 seconds. And don't forget, he has 3 of them. That means if he chains his entire set of smokes, that delays the enemy for a total of 57.75 seconds. These smokes, they're amazing for denying sight lines on both attacker, and they're also a great piece of stalling utility for both the attacker and the defender side. Let's look at the defender side first here. It's important to know that Brimstone has a range to where he can actually place these smokes, which makes sense as they're arguably one of the strongest smokes in the entire game. Just make sure you're positioning yourself properly in order to be able to smoke positions that are being contested. This will often result in Brimstone playing more of a rotator role, as he sits in between the sides on some maps in order to smoke both sides and rotate to the side the enemy is likely to attack. It's also crucial you don't waste all 3 of your smokes off the start of the round, smoking off angles unnecessarily. Your smokes are also very strong when used to take space on defender's side. For example, if your team wants to do an aggressive play towards middle on ascent, simply smoking off either tiles or top mid can be extremely instrumental to your team's success. Use your smokes when called for by teammates or when you notice extra pressure being applied to one side of the map. This goes for attackers and defenders, but your smokes can also be used for kills. The Brimstone smoke is a very low visibility smoke when compared to Astras or Omens. This means you can sit in your smokes pretty easily with a shotgun and net some free kills on unsuspecting enemies. This is a very short clip, but notice how hard it is for these Radiant players to even react to Perry sitting in his smoke with a judge here. Perry also noted that whoever is on the edge of Brim smokes will see the enemy first, so don't put yourself straight in the center. Moving on from defensive side, let's look at the attackers. Attacker side smokes are essential when dealing with sightlines that the enemy may be abusing. The biggest piece of advice to take away here is to always be on top of using your smokes when your team needs them. With time, you're going to learn where to optimally be placing your smokes, but you also need to consistently be aware of what's happening in the game. Let's hop onto Ascent and look at some examples of what you should be doing for your team. If your team is getting ready to execute, be sure you have your smokes locked in and ready to be placed. If your team really likes to play around middle, it's good to ask them if they would like a smoke on cat or maybe in mid, depending on where they want to work. I can't stress how vital it is that you are using your smokes outside of actual side executes in order to take space. Your smokes, they're super vital in counterplay to operators. If you can smoke off the operator every round, you're doing your part in completely denying that player free kills. Sky smokes can also be used to sell a fake, and most players know this, but they can also be used to fake a fake. Allow me to explain. Most players will see a single smoke come in, and if they don't notice anything for a while, they're going to start to get a little antsy. Some will even boldly assume it's a fake and leave the spike site expecting the other site to be hit. Now, this doesn't always work, but it's just a good example of some extra mind games you can do with the sky smokes. Also remember, the sky smokes are not only vision denial, but they're great at denying the enemy team a chance of pushing back onto the site once you have control of it. Delay, deny, and hide. 3 good words to remember when thinking about your sky smokes. This all might sound super complex, and we get it. So, if you're just looking for every spot to smoke on every map, be sure to check out the section in our Brimstone course. Next, we're looking at one of Brimstone's most slept-on pieces of utility, and that is the Stim Beacon. The Stim Beacon should not be underestimated, as you can use it on so many different scenarios. It essentially makes everything you do just a little bit faster. The stim expands 6 meters and provides great buffs to your speed. Lasting for 12 whole seconds on the ground, the buff will also stay active for 4 whole seconds after leaving its radius. Not only can you use the Stim Beacon for your teammates, but you can use it for yourself as well. Let's take a look at that first. The Stim Beacon can be great for quick swings in a 1v1 situation. Now let's say you're stuck in a 1v1 behind cover and want to throw the enemy off. Throw in a couple of shoulder peeks, throw a Stim Beacon at your feet, and race car swing him. Sure, he may know what to expect, but that's all part of the mind games with it. The point is, once you have that speed buff, you have a lot more options as you're just more quicker than the opponent. The Stim Beacon is also amazing at helping yourself and teammates rotate faster to another spike site. You can also use it for extremely fast entries onto site, be it retaking on defense or taking a site on attacker. A neon with a Stim Beacon speed boost? That's something the enemy would have a very hard time dealing with. And as surprising as it sounds, you can also use the Stim Beacon to help sell fakes. And I know it sounds silly, but just think about it with me here for a second. When you hear a Stim Beacon, you immediately think they're about to fast push my site. So, just something to keep in mind, there's surprisingly a bit of mind games kind of involved with this Stim Beacon based off how players react to it. We also asked Calvin, who's another Brimstone Radiant 1 trick, what he thinks is a good application for his Stim Beacon. Now, he noted that it's great for throwing off timings, such as getting an instant peek off on defender's side or throwing it down for your jet to get an easy operator kill. The Stim Beacon may seem simple, my friends, but it just has so many insanely useful applications that people never really think about. Now it's time to talk about Brimstone's heavy hitter, the Orbital Strike. This ultimate costs a massive 8 points, and rightfully so. It's a large deterrent that's great at stopping pushes and can also help a push onto a site. Now, the ultimate deals 20 damage per tick for a total of 500 damage over its duration. It lasts for 3 seconds at its full size, and it'll tick for 0.75 seconds as it fades away. This ultimate is primarily used to delay a spike plant, but it has a lot of application across the board. It can be great at clearing out commonly played angles if you're attacking site. For example, the most known ultimate for attackers is in U-Haul on A-Site Bind. Orbital Strike can completely clear U-Haul, forcing the enemy to either peek into your team or try and get out of the ultimate. Now, usually though, they won't make it out of U-Haul if they're too deep. Also on Bind, it can be used to kill anyone in the teleporter if you know there's a player stuck in it. Orbital Strike is honestly such an amazing piece of flushing utility, and it needs to be looked at from multiple perspectives as it's so versatile. It's also great at killing players that are locked in animations. For example, a player getting revived can be killed every single time by a Brimstone ult if it's timed correctly. Same goes for Phoenix players using their ultimate, or even a Sova and his drone. As long as you have a good idea where the enemy is, this ability can be used to kill them fairly easily. Just be sure you're centering the enemy player in the ultimate, as this is going to help ensure that they can't make it out. Also note that this ability is so good at stalling the spike defusal, it can be used in tandem with your Molly to delay even longer. Simply throw down your Brimstone ult, throw in a Molly lineup you learned from our course, and watch as the enemy team struggles to hold on to the round. Also, remember that your Brimstone ultimate does much less damage to yourself and your teammates. So if you have your health to spare, you can pull off some pretty cheeky plays. And as you can see in this clip, Perry runs through his own ultimate in order to catch the opposing Killjoy off guard. Brimstone ult also denies vision, so it can be used to get yourself out of some pretty hairy situations. And I personally have found myself stuck in situations where I've had to use my ultimate as an impromptu smoke. And yes, it is an ultimate and it costs 8 points, but just always remember, an ultimate is simply just a piece of utility. If you couldn't have won the round without using it, it was worth using it. I hope after some of these examples that you've realized just how versatile this ability really is. It's not only a piece of stalling util to stop plant, the application of this ability can be used in a variety of situations to help you on your way to getting a win. We want to show off some examples of what we've just talked about to help you better understand Brimstone as a whole. We'll start with a simple but well-played round from Calvin, aka SmackSmackk.
Probably flank.
Spike planted.
Smoke true.
Yeah, I'm holding flank.
Face your fear!
Hot shot.
Push a nail, push a nail.
Call tap, call tap.
Last player standing.
Open up the sky! Molly! See ya. That's 3.
One enemy remaining.
Half it.
Eight.
Yeah!
Notice as soon as he gets the spike down, he starts to rotate towards the chamber tripwire to check flank. As soon as Calvin catches wind that there may be an enemy near the tripwire, the Vandal is out. He takes out the Raze and has info on every player aside from Chamber. Calvin realizes that if Chamber was flanking, they would have been with the Raze. Calvin immediately hops on his Orbital Strike as he knows his team is being overwhelmed on sight. If you notice, the Orbital Strike covers most of the areas Calvin can be peeked from, so he decides that it's the most optimal time for him to use his Brimstone Molly. He proceeds to land 3 very well-placed kills. From here, Calvin can see the defuse and knows his fade has to stick, so he pulls out the shorty to finish the job. This is a great example of using the ultimate to delay the spike, deny sight lines, and then use the Molly to delay even longer. This is a great example of staggering Brimstone utility to waste the retaking team's time. Most players would have lost this round due to aim, which is why we said earlier on it can sometimes be preferred to just stick with your team as opposed to leaving to make a lineup play. Calvin left pretty early, and although he did get his pick on flank, he probably should not have won that round. But by using his utility perfectly, he increased his chances just enough to secure that round. All in all, an amazing example of what your utility can do to supplement your aim and game sense. The next round we have is from the same player, and this is an even better example of pre-planning and staggering utility. Calvin is on an eco here, so he throws his smokes to help with close-ranged engagements. Calvin has already pre-planned in his head where he would plant at this point, and notice how Calvin goes for the plant inside of his smoke with the shorty out, immediately gets the kill on fade, and secures the gun with little effort here. He continues his plant, then sprints to B main in order to get his lineup down so the plan can continue. Once the Molly's down, he uses the extra 8 seconds he stole from the enemy team to rotate into his prime post-plant position. Once he gets to a safe spot, he waits for tap. He knows that after he's going to use the ultimate, he'll have a few seconds to get into an even better position here too. It's important to note that Calvin doesn't even risk peeking into someone watching him before he gets his ultimate off. As soon as the tap is in, he knows he's able to sprint knife out to his post-plant position since anyone near the bomb is going to be running away from the Orbital Strike. He gets a Sova scan on the chamber and knows Chamber has to get on the bomb. He goes for a couple shots, misses, recorrects, and plays around his angles pretty well here. As soon as he kills the chamber, the round is over for the enemy team. He ends up losing the final gunfight, but the round is won. A common trend you're going to see in these post plants is that Calvin is staggering his utility to slowly get himself into better and better positions. This is a crucial thing you need to understand with Brimstone. Brimstone has so much delay power, he can literally rotate to a very far away position if the utility is used well enough. This is exactly what happens in this clip. Calvin knows how much time his utility is granting him. This allows Calvin to take advantage of the time and move into a better spot to get his ult off. He then moves into an even better position once the ultimate is off and then wins the round. We've covered post plant so heavily because it is pretty crucial for Brimstone, but let's look at another round. This final clip also comes from Calvin. It's pistol round, and you can see once again that Calvin has already pre-planned his round.
Spike planted.
Stim Beacon down. Launching smoke.
Both side. I can't help, I can't see. Oh shit.
Last player standing.
Got him. Nice.
He shoots his Molly onto sight, stims himself and his teammate, then proceeds to smoke the spike off. Once the spike is concealed, he knows the enemy's going to have a hard time spamming it with pistols, and also knows anyone entering the smoke is going to be at a severe disadvantage entering his smokes. Calvin jumps into his smoke, offsets himself from spike, then starts the defuse. Offsetting himself on the spike makes it way harder for the enemy team to spam him, especially since they only have classics. And as you can see from this example and our previous 2 examples, Brimstone is easily one of the most versatile characters in Valorant. Also easily one of the best controllers when a player like Calvin or Perry get their hands on him. It's also great to see these players push a character to their max potential, and I hope everyone watching learns some new ways to use Brimstone. Unfortunately, is usually seen as a pretty straightforward character, but that couldn't be further from the truth. All right, though, guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little bit more about SkillCapped. So we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and we think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's kind of like a gym membership guaranteeing you that you're gonna get ripped. Your local gym would probably go bust if they offered you that. But not us, because we've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium Valorant guides on the internet. We add new courses every month with over 1,000 guides curated into over 50 courses. No one can compare. We also have a direct line of communication with subscribers in our Discord so that you can get connected immediately to some of the best players in the game who will respond to every question you ask. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you're serious about improving your game. So that's going to be all for this one today, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.